Hi everyone, I am Punya Aggarwal, ACCA affiliate, co-founder of Being ACCA, and in this video I am going to cover some of the common mistakes that AA students usually do when they are appearing for the paper or when they are practicing, and I'll also be telling you how to avoid those. So till now I have checked more than I would say 100 plus scripts at the moment, and these are some of the common mistakes that usually students do, and I thought that this video might be helpful for you because it will be accumulation of all of the errors that people usually do, so you can see if you are also doing it, how can you avoid it. If you're doing it, even if you're not doing it, you'll just get an idea, okay, this is something which I need to avoid in the final paper, right? So I hope that this video is helpful for everybody who is giving their AA June attempt this time. So let's start. So I will not just be talking in general, that you should do this, you should do that, but I will also be talking in terms of specific topic wise mistakes that usually people do when they are appearing for this particular exam. So the first one, we'll cover all of these topics when we are talking about the common mistakes that students usually do. So general mistakes, audit risk related, internal control. So these are some of the topics that we have to cover when we are talking about AA, right? So let's move with the general mistakes. First of all, general mistakes include, first of all, talking about the knowledge-based questions. They are very, very, very important. And I have seen students taking knowledge-based questions for granted. Guys, this accounts for at least 15-20% of your entire paper. This comes in your section A, this comes in your section B, and very, very important. And these are, I would say, these are very, very easy marks, because this is something that this is the only area in the AA syllabus that you can actually learn, that you can actually memorize. So you can definitely think of, like, this is only area that you can learn. So when you know something can appear in the paper, you can learn it previously, you can prepare for previously, it will actually fetch you very good marks. But students tend to take this very, very lightly and not take do not do enough practice of it, written practice. Actually, they just see the notes and they learn them and do not write them. Till the time that you do not write anything on your own, usse pehle you won't be getting to know that are you actually aware of it, do you actually understand it, right? So it's important that you do not take the knowledge based questions lightly. I have already prepared a PDF document which contains some of the commonly asked knowledge based questions, so it's available in the drive link, so you can check that out. Talking next about the IFRSs, the ISAs, they are very, very again important from the exam perspective, because your entire AA syllabus is based upon standards. If you do not know standards, you are not going to, you'll not be able to explain the risk or internal controls or substantive procedures or review and reporting area questions, because you're not referencing the standard. And when we are talking about the standard, if you read as per the relevant accounting standard, as I personally believe, I know a lot of mentors and tutors say that it's not really important. It's okay if you don't know the name and the number. But I say that as professionals, as when we're giving the exam, we only have in AA, we only have limited number of standards that are being tested. So why not know the name and number when you're writing your answers? Why not impress the examiner, right? So that is the reason. If in the exam, for example, you forget by chance the name and the number, then of course you can write as per the relevant accounting standard. But I would say, I would insist, I would request you people to have a firm grip over the standards. Again, in the same drive link, I have a PDF which contains some of the commonly asked standards in a very brief format, so you can refer to that as well. Then next one, of course, everybody knows about this, time management, not just for AA, but for other papers as well. Time management is very, very, very important. You cannot just skip upon time management and think that you're going to pass AA. I'll give you an example from my previous experience, like previous attempt. So there were two students of mine who scored, I would say 65, 67-ish in their mocks when they gave it to with me in my test series. Both of them, and they were very good students, I would say, because they were able to score approximately 70 when they're appearing for the mocks. Now when they go to their exam, the only problem that they faced was time management. In my mock, they took extra time, which I told them not to take, but still they took, I think, half an hour, 45 minutes extra, and that is how they were able to score 70. When in the final exam they went, they left 17 marks of paper, one left 20 marks of paper. And in the result, when the result came for March attempt, one scored 45 and one scored 47. And that was just because they were not able to complete their paper on time. They knew everything. They were not able to complete the paper on time. Had it, they would have received extra time, they would have gotten same marks which they got in my mocks. So that is the reason I'm telling time management. जितना भी हम बोले, howsoever it sounds small, it is very very important from exam perspective. If you sink down time management, you won't be able to pass the exam. That is my guarantee to you. So you have to work upon it. I have already made a video for time management and how can you work upon it. You can also go and check out that video. Second, fourth is spelling and grammatical errors. Now this is again a little controversial thing. Like people say कि marks नहीं cut हो सकते spelling errors में. People say yes, it can be cut. I give you both perspectives. All right. So there can be two perspectives to the grammatical errors or the spelling errors that you are doing in the paper. All right. One is wherein there are very minimal spelling errors, where there are very minimal grammatical errors, wherein if I read the answer, I'm able to understand, okay, this is something which the person might have meant. Okay. So there are not a lot of spelling errors and grammatical errors. So that works. That's fine. Examiner won't cut marks for it because he or she will be able to understand what you're trying to say. All right. Second case scenario is where, which I give you an example also from my personal experience of the students. One of the students, they gave me the answer, and in a single liner of substantive procedure, in a single liner of internal controls, she made in a single liner, she made 7 8 spelling errors, probably because she was typing too fast, probably she did not know the spellings, anything can be the reason. But that was so, in that particular sentence, when I see that there are 6 7 8 mistakes, it will turn me off. I'll be like, oh my god, these are so many spelling mistakes, how do I understand what she's meaning? Grammatical errors also the same. A lot of students, when they're writing the explanation of the risk or the internal controls or the deficiencies, because they're too haphazard with the grammatical errors, they write something which the examiner probably not be able to understand. So if the examiner is not able to understand what you're trying to say, you cannot actually expect them marks, expect them to give you marks, right? So your spelling errors and grammatical errors are okay till the time it's not very much, till the time the examiner is able to understand the meaning and what you're trying to say. If the examiner is not able to understand your meaning, not able to understand what you're trying to say, he or she won't give you marks. Another area is that they have a lot of scripts to check. They won't devote extra minute to your script to understand, trying to understand what you say. Right now, when I'm checking the test scripts and checking the mocks of AA and AAA students, I give my 100% to understand what the person was trying to say. So probably I spend extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes to understand what the scenario was and what the student meant. But they don't have the time. They'll simply cross it out, give you zero, and move ahead. So you are responsible for your own script. Spelling errors, grammatical errors, okay if it is less. More, not okay, they'll cut marks. Lengthy answers, again, writing stories in the paper, I've also seen, because students sometimes, because audit is a subjective paper, you tend to write a lot which is not required. So length of the answers has to be as per the marks available. If it is for a 4 to 5 marks, for example, your points should not exceed more than 6 to 7 when you're writing the answers. Maximum, that should be the length, not more than that. All right, because that will impact the answers, that will impact the quality, that will impact the time management also, and we do not have any extra time. All right. Next important in the general one is reading the questions. Actually, not reading the questions very carefully. Sometimes, we assume something which is actually not the case. For example, there's a certain scenario given to us. We all know that in section B, the first question comes for risks, second question comes for internal controls, third question comes for substantive procedures. For example, and we already know that in the audit risk questions, they are going to ask us 8 audit risk for 16 marks. For example, they change the requirement, and to trick you, they'd say, no, give us 10 audit risk. Sometimes people overlook and do not see what the difference in the question is. All right, so that is again an area wherein you have to focus. You do not have to rush. You have to read the question carefully. Even if you have read it 1,000 times before the same question, you have to read it 1,001 time in the exam at least. अगर आपने practice के time पे 1,000 बार वो पढ़ा है, आप अपने final paper में एक बार तो पढ़ सकते हो, even if it is the same, right? So that is something that you should not do. Secondly, this is also true for the case studies. sometimes students again assume that this is what the case study is telling them. I'll give you an example. So you people all know, in the audit risk, when we question get, usually we get a risk for bank loan, that the company has taken a bank loan, and then you write the risk related to that. Now, in one of the questions that I give in my test series, there was a question wherein the company took a bank loan, and usually what happens is, when we are writing the risk, we tell that there should be a split between current and non-current liabilities to ensure classification, to ensure disclosure, etc. This is the common risk that we usually write for the bank loan, and people have usually learned it, which is not, should not be the case scenario, right? So what happens is, now in the question it was very, very clearly stated that they have correctly split it between current liabilities and non-current liabilities. So do you think in this case, if you're going to write this risk, will it fetch you marks? Of course not. So probably in that question they had to talk about the finance costs associated with the bank loan, but because they had an assumption that this is the case study, this is the risk, therefore they did not read the liner carefully, and due to which the cut, it had to, they did not get marks. That is another example I'll give you is, sometimes when in the question asks you both the things, direct controls, it asks your deficiencies also. So sometimes what happens is, supposedly these two lines are given, and here this full line is a direct control, you see everything going good, 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 positive, positive, right? But then, you as students, you read till here only, but next line said however. That means there was a problem over here. So technically it is a deficiency, but because you did not read it properly, did not read the case study properly, and assumed that this is a direct control, thereby you lost marks. All right. So these were some of the common issues that were faced by students usually. Now let's move ahead with some of the topic wise problems as well. Audit risk. Yeah, okay. So audit risk. Now let me quickly first tell you the formatting so that you people are aware of the formatting. Always whenever we get audit risk question, audit risk, audit response question, the first thing I always ask the students to do is give a heading. For example, it is a detection risk, new client. So new client, this is the word new client, or detection risk. Or for example, you're talking about revenue risk, so you're writing revenue, or provision, whatever is the risk, at least a small 1 or 2 word heading should be given. Now this is again a little controversial, because many mentors and tutors say that it's not required, it's wastage of time, but I always say that it will make the life of the examiner easier, right? And this, for example, for one heading, you are spending 2 to 3 seconds maximum, because you're only writing 2 or 3 words there, and in total you have to write supposedly 8 audit risk. So in that case, you're going to take into 8, so maximum you're going to spend is 30 seconds, 30 to 40 seconds on just the headings. I think this much you can definitely spend, right? So that is the reason I say, of course it's not compulsory, marks cut nahi hote hain if you're not writing the headings, but it's always good if you write the headings for better presentation and for examiner also. All right, so this is headings, then you leave a gap in between, and then you copy paste the statement from the question. Now if you know, the audit risk, one audit risk is for 1 mark, one response is for 1 mark. This 1 mark is further bifurcated into your identification of the risk and explanation of the risk. So identification fetches you half a mark, explanation fetches you half a mark. All right. So this identification, sometimes students skip on this and straight away write, there is a risk that bank loan has not been split. But where is the identification? Kahan se pata chala ki company ne bank loan liya? So you have to copy paste the statement from the question and then explain to it. All right. So headings, risk explanation. Now explanation without copying the risk from the question. So again, you have to copy paste and then you explain that as per the standard, or there's a risk of overstatement, etc. Right. So that's that. Impact on financial statements. Now what students do is they write there is a risk that for supposedly bank loan has not been split. All right. So you write there's a risk that the bank loan has not been split. So, okay, I got it that bank loan is not being split between current and non-current liabilities. But how is it going to impact my financial statements? That is the half a mark that you get for the explanation. If you do not write the impact, overstatement, understatement, misstatement, detection risk, control risk, frauds, inheritance risk, all of these are how all of these are impacting your financial statements, till the time you're not going to get half a mark for explanation. All right. So this is the impact of on financials. Fourth one is combining risk. Again, this is part of when we are not reading the question really carefully, because we are too much engrossed in just going through the risk, etc. So we do not read the case study really carefully. And for example, there was this whole paragraph. All right. And here there was one risk. Here there was another risk. People combine these two and write in one. अगेन अ मिस्टेक, अ वेरी सिली मिस्टेक्स. यू आर कटिंग योर ओन मार्क्स. जहां पे आपको 4 मार्क्स मिल सकते थे, 2+2 मार्क्स मिल सकते थे, वेर यू आर ओनली गेटिंग 1 2 mark, not 4 marks, right? So combining, again, reading the case study really well is important in this case. Again, presentation, as I just told you, that you have to leave gaps in between so that the identification is clear, that okay, half a mark for the identification, half a mark for the explanation. If you're combining these two, little difficult for the examiner, so presentation is also important. Copy pasting entire paragraphs instead of relevant information. Now this is very, very important. I'll again give you an example for this one. So basically this is regarding the identification of the risk. All right, so what happens is, for example, this was your case study. All right, and your risk was here. Your actual risk, for example, related to bank loan, was here. So technically to get half a mark, you should just copy paste this line, this paragraph wherein you were told about the bank loan. All right, बट वॉट स्टूडेंट्स डू, दे कॉपी पेस्ट द इंटायर पैराग्राफ. यहाँ पे सपोजिंग उन्होंने लिखा है कि दे मैन्युफैक्चर, दे आर रिटेलर्स ऑल्सो, सम रैंडम इन्फॉर्मेशन इज बीइंग मेंशन्ड. यहाँ पे भी सम रैंडम इन्फॉर्मेशन इज बीइंग मेंशन्ड, एंड स्टूडेंट्स कॉपी पेस्ट द इंटायर पैराग्राफ. If you're copy pasting the entire paragraph, the half a mark for identification not going to get. Why? Because ultimately the examiner has to reread the full paragraph to check himself that which is the risk that you are talking about, right? So that is again a problematic area. Only copy paste the relevant information, do not copy paste full paragraph. All right, assuming standards, this is again which I have already given you an example previously as well, that never ever assume anything. I'll give you another example specific to the standards. All right, so for example, as per IS 38, when we are talking about patents, right? Now, they say that only we need to capitalize only the direct expenditure related to the patent. For example, cost of the patent, right? And rest should be expensed out. So that is one risk that usually comes in this case. All right, so for example, they have also given you that there was some admin cost, there was some legal fees, etc. So technically you should not capitalize these, you should only capitalize the cost. This is a general risk that arises, that probably we have capitalized everything and there has not been a bifurcation between research expenditure and development expenditure, due to which our patent costs are overstated, for example, right? Now, again, when students do not read the question really carefully, this is a live example that I'm given to you. In one of the case study, I saw that in the question only they've stated that they have only capitalized the cost of the asset. They have not capitalized the legal and the administrative cost or the advertising cost, etc. उन्होंने वो already लिख दिया है. But students, because they do not read the question carefully, they assume कि यही standard होगा, यही follow होगा. जबकि वहां पे the problem was in regards to amortization and not regarding the split of revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. So again, never assume standards. Of course, as बहुत cases में होता है कि they only talk about the split between current and non-current, your revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, etc. But you also need to ensure that you're reading the question carefully. All right, then the next one is risk versus threats. Now a lot of students, sometimes, for example, in the question they said it was seen that it was a self-interest threat. They write self-interest threat and audit risk, which is again a very big issue. You should have a clarity between what is audit risk and what are threats to independence. All right, there is a distinction between these two. So these were some of the common mistakes that people usually do in audit risk topic. Let's move to the next topic, which is in relation to your internal controls. Again, headings, as I've just mentioned in the audit risk as well, headings are really very, very important. Impact on the company. Now, a lot of students do tend to get confused between deficiencies and audit risk, internal control deficiencies and audit risk. Guys, straight simple answer is your audit risk is dependent upon, is impact impacts your financial statements, the items with the financial statements, whether revenue, profits, assets, loans, liabilities, cash, bank, etc. So these are all the things that audit risk impacts the financial statements. But our deficiencies, they impact the company as a whole. Company's goodwill, supplier goodwill, employee goodwill, or frauds and errors, segregation of duties, no reconciliations being performed, losses to the company, frauds happening in the company, etc. So you have to, when you're explaining that how is it as a deficiency, you also need to write that how is it negatively going to impact the company as a whole. You are not going to talk about financial statements over here. All right. Next is not able to differentiate between risk and deficiency. This is what exactly I just not talked about. That many students are not able to distinguish between whether it is a risk or whether it is a deficiency, which leads to a problem in the paper. All right. Identifying deficiencies. Now, a lot of students, what this think is that, for example, these are the paragraphs. Now, in the paper, not all in the case study, not all the liners that they have written, or not the all the information that they have written is a risk or a deficiency or a control. Probably that's just a filler. But students, because they are so, they think that every line will have a direct control, every line will have a deficiency. You have to be careful in doing that for example, this was a line, here you found a deficiency, probably this is just a filler, this is not a risk, this is not a deficiency, this is not a control. So identification of the deficiencies is also very, very important. Not reading case study properly, again, this we have already discussed. All right. Next, let's move to substantive procedure. Very, very, very important. And I think this is an area wherein most of the students are very, very scared. I'm not really sure of the reason why are they so scared of substantive procedures, but they are. So talking about rote learning. Now, substantive procedure account for 20 to 25% of your entire paper, and you just cannot afford to lose on your marks because of this. All right. Rote learning is a big, big no. All right. Because see, supposingly you come to me and you say, ma'am, I'm not able to understand this question जो आपने specific doubt आपके पास था relating to something. All right. So instead of solving your particular doubt, I revolve around and I say something random. मैं आपको रैंडम चीजें सिखा रही हूँ, मैं आपको रैंडम चीजों का एग्जाम्पल दे रही हूँ, बट आई एम नॉट आंसरिंग योर पर्टिकुलर डाउट. विल यू बी सेटिस्फाइड? ऑफ कोर्स नॉट. आप बोलोगे मैम तो पागल हो गई, मैम क्या बता रही है, मैंने तो क्या पूछा था, मैम क्या बता रही है, मैम मेरे को जनरल क्यों बता रही है, मैंने तो स्पेसिफिक डाउट पूछा है, मैम ने मुझे वो क्यों नहीं बताया है. Right, this will be your mentality. Similarly, when the case study has been given to you and they say, for example, write the substantive procedures for the procedures, for the provisions, for example, right? So if you're not talking in terms of the case study में था कि 10 million का provision उन्होंने recognize किया, for example, but you have learned the procedures and आप general लिख रहे हो और आप वो 10 million की बात ही नहीं कर रहे हो. Do you think the examiner will be satisfied? Of course not. They'll be saying ये क्या लिखा है? Does not make any sense. All right. Learning substantive procedure is a big no, no, no. You can reference your general procedures to understand the verb, the documents, the assertions, all of those scenario, कैसा लिखते हैं. But learning and just dumping them in your answer or vomiting them in your answers does not make any sense. You won't be getting marks for it. All right. That is what listing general procedures is a big no. If it is a case study, if it is, for example, a 5-marker case study, 5-marker question, you have to write at least 2 and 3 as per the case scenario and rest in the general ones. I have already made a very, very brief videos for substantive procedures individually. And I've also solved a past paper question for substantive procedures. So you can go and check it out on my YouTube channel. You'll get a very good understanding of how to relate your substantive procedures to the case study. All right. Then the next one is assertions. See, there are 3 questions when I always tell you that your substantive procedure should answer. What are you doing? How are you going to do what you're going to do? And why are you going to do? तो क्यों करने वाले हो substantive procedure? That is your assertions. I've again made a video for assertions as well. You can go and check it out, that video as well. Everything related to assertions I've explained over there. So assertions, not writing assertions is also a big problem and leads to losing of marks. Second is verbs and assertions using wrong verbs. कभी कभार मैंने देखा है कि बहुत सारे लोग क्या करते हैं, if they're referring to discuss with management, all of the procedures that you already discussed with management, discuss with discuss, or if they're writing review, so review, or if they're writing, they take up one verb and they write everywhere. That does not work. If you're writing, if you're saying discuss with supporting documentation, how are you going to discuss with the supporting documentation? You can going to review the supporting documentation, you can recalculate the supporting documentation, etc., but you cannot discuss. So all of the verbs cannot fit in all of the scenarios, so you need to understand the difference. And in that video for the assertions, I've explained the verbs also, you can check it out as well. Focus on the question. Again, focus on the assertion. Sometimes in the question you are given for a particular assertion, they say ki only and only talk about valuation of the case study, so you have to focus upon that. You cannot write general ones, right? So all of this I've already covered in my previous videos as well. You can go and check it out, that as well. Let's move to the next one, which is review and reporting. This again, I recently uploaded a video for review and reporting wherein told you how to write the answers. You can check out that video as well. But just to give you an overview, whenever you have a 5 marker review and reporting question wherein they're asking you, what would be the opinion, how will the report be impacted, etc., all of these things, the first thing that you have to talk about is case background. What is happening, what is the problem? I have seen students writing, there will be, this is material, thereby the author will be having a qualified opinion. But what was the case scenario यार? केस सिनारियो तो लिखो कि क्या हो रहा था, क्या प्रॉब्लम थी, मैनेजमेंट ने कहाँ एडजस्ट करेगा या नहीं करेगा, what was the issue, you have to talk about that. Then you also, the second thing, this is the first thing, this is the second thing, then you talk about materiality, that is it material, if it is material, how is it material. आप calculate करते, you have to calculate the materiality. For example, they have given you the provision of 10 million and starting of the question they gave you PAT or PBT of, for example, XYZ amount, so you can take out the materiality percentage. So that is what you need to talk about here. Materiality is very, very important, will fetch you 1 mark. Devising concepts, again, qualified कब होगा, adverse opinion कब होगा, unmodified opinion कब होगा, these all things you have to understand very well. All right. Qualified opinion basis, again, basis for qualified opinion, a lot of people miss this paragraph after they have told that this is will be a opinion, qualified opinion, modified opinion, whatever. This again accounts for 1 mark, and you missing it will cause a problem. All right. Not reading the question carefully, again, common issue. All right. Next and the last one is section A. I have again made a full-fledged section A video already on YouTube. You can check it out. But taking section A for granted, guys, today I am filming this video on 21st of May. Your paper is on 2nd of June. Right now, sitting today, I'm telling you, your section A is going to come very, very, very tricky. It has been a pattern of ACCA that from last 4-5 years, section A has always come tricky, and section B always comes lengthy. So if you take section A for granted, you're not going to get marks. Although it is MCQs, but they're not as easy MCQs. All right. Not practicing enough questions. Understanding. See, guys, in section B, you can rote learn and you can vomit in the paper. But for section A, if you do not have the understanding of the substantive procedures of the reporting of the questions, you won't be able to answer the questions in section A. All right. Importance of procedures, again, this is corresponding to this, that procedures are very, very important and understanding them is equally important. All right. So this was all from my side. These were some of the common mistakes that I found in most of the scripts, and I came with for you to explain these to you so that you understand these and not make these same mistakes when you're practicing and when you are appearing for your final paper. I hope that these videos are helpful for you, and do let me know if you people have any doubts, any problems in the entire syllabus, any problems in terms of understanding of these things as well. All the very, very, very best for your June attempt.